My name is Mitchell Hernandez. I am one half of the Devil's Advocate. Some would say the better half. I think I might be the only one that says that. But today is the 15th. It's the Ides of March, and there was an election in Holland, and I wanted to kind of put my thoughts into it. Um, so, people who don't know about Holland, there is what they call the Dutch Donald Trump, whose name is Geert Wilders, and he was leading in the polls for a long time. He was expected to win for a very long time until this past week, where he started to dip a little bit in the polls. Um, and at least at this point, at this recording right now, it doesn't look like he will be winning. Let's see. The last I checked, there was about 20% of the vote in or so, but all of the exit poll indicates that Mark, I believe his name's Rutte. There's an E at the end of it, and it's European names. I never noted if it's going to be the E or not. So Rutte, maybe? I don't know. But it looks like he's the current prime minister. It looks like he's going to be just fine, that he's going to continue to be there. Um, Now I don't know a great deal about politics, so I'm not going to pretend in Holland. So I'm not going to pretend to be any type of expert. But just I was watching this one because of the whole Trump phenomena here in the United States, and was trying to see if it would emulate itself in Europe. Now, obviously, Europe has had its own issues with migrants and things like that. And because of this, we've seen Europe turn much more conservative. Um, so we were going to see if it kind of translated into a win for Mr. Wilders. Now, one thing about him is he is extremely fiery, you could say. I mean, people would call him a racist, and I kind of can't say that he isn't. His things are pretty racist. Now, I can't pretend to understand the nuances of Holland policy or anything because I don't live there. I know very little about the Dutch. Uh, but he says some crazy things. So before, I thought that maybe I would just kind of read some of the things that he was planning on doing. He wanted to Islamize the Netherlands. So what that meant was there was going to be zero asylum seekers and no more immigrants from Muslim countries who are closing our borders. This is a statement that he put out. Withdrawal of all resident permits already granted to asylum seekers. Asylum seeker centers closed down. No more Muslim veils in public functions. And to me, that's a weird one because you've also heard uh, Marine Le Pen, kind of the front runner in the French elections. She did the same thing. And I'm a Republican. I don't make any claims against that. I am a Republican and a conservative. Even I don't really like that. Like, yet, basically, she was saying what she had a big ordeal that happened, and we'll get to France in a second. But she had a big thing that happened where she was supposed to meet with some Muslim leaders, and they wanted her to wear a headscarf, and she basically said no, and she walked out of the meeting. She was like, "I'm not going to do it." So I get that. Yeah, good job. That's fine. But then to say that you can't wear it at all sort of seems like you're fighting oppression with oppression. Anyway, that's just my take on it. So apparently that's a big issue going on right now in Europe. Is these people? There are people who are vocal now about trying to shut down veils, Muslim veils, the burqas, and things like that. A ban of overall Muslim expressions that are against the public order, prevention. I'm sorry. Criminals with double nationality stripped of their Dutch citizenship and deported. Syrian fighters not allowed back in the Netherlands. All mosques and Muslim schools to be closed and the Quran banned. I mean, it's really hard to defend any of those things. But he's pretty popular. Now it doesn't look like he's won. So there's that. He also says that the Netherlands will reclaim its independence. Therefore, we must leave the EU. That's something that we saw England do. Now I know a couple of people who are very staunch supporters of the EU. I've also read quite a few things about why the EU isn't working and why it's not good. Um, So my take on that is let them decide. I mean, this seems like it's a decision for them, and I'm certainly not going to put myself in a spot where I need to tell another country what to be doing. That seems a little ridiculous. So at least it appears that they probably will not be leaving the EU. Granted, he didn't win, but I also thought it was pretty interesting. Just how many parties there are in Holland. There was a ridiculous amount of parties, and I guess that now they all get different seats there, and they're all going to have to work together. I mean, there's like what was it, eight different parties or something. Just ridiculous. In America, that's something that I just cannot even understand. Like that would be like the Green Party, the Constitution Party, the Republicans, the Democrats, the Libertarians, all like having to work together. And I'm sure they could do it. It would just I don't know what that looks like because in America it's basically always been a two-party system. So it's interesting to say the least. But moving on to France now, because it seems like the Netherlands is going to basically stay where they're at least from everything I'm reading, it looks like that's where it is. Geert Wilders has come out saying he's not going anywhere. He's going to still, be just as outspoken as ever. He's been doing this since the 90s. So, I mean, this guy's a politician through and through. He's going to be just fine. He's going to figure out ways to stay relevant. But the thing to me is France. Because the Dutch haven't really had any type of incidents like the French have had. Like the French have had quite a few attacks. And, we all remember Charlie Hebdo. We remember when they were driving the what do you call it, that truck. They've had a series of attacks, and I'm sure different ones that I'm not even aware of. And the current president there was François Hollande, who is a socialist, actually became pretty intense with the bombings there and fighting back of ISIS. So that's why we've kind of see this conservatism rise up in Europe. We've seen attacks. They don't have the best border systems, and people come in, and these things happen. Now in America, we have our oceans to protect us, and that helps out a bit. But so we don't see the exact same things that they've been seeing. But that has been kind of rising this conservative movement there. So I'm very interested to seeing if Le Pen can win. And she also just, aside from the whole burqa incident where she came out and said, "I'm not going to wear it. You can't make me. This meeting's over. That's fine," which I applauded. She then tweeted, I believe, pretty graphic images of ISIS executions, and they they took away her immunity. They actually did. They took it away, which basically said like, "Hey, you're running for office and all that. You can't get arrested for this and that and the other." So they took that away, and then someone brought up the fact that it's actually illegal to post violent images, so she might actually be facing charges. I don't know if that's going to go anywhere or not. That'd be very interesting to see. But to me, France is the real litmus test for the countries that are big in the EU that are basically seeing attacks that maybe Holland didn't see. So we're gonna see how that goes, and then I know that they've expressed sentiments towards leaving the EU as well. England just went forward doing their the next step in them getting out of the EU. So it's interesting to see where all this is going. But really, France is the one that I want to be checking out a lot. This one was important too. I definitely think that if Geert would have won, it would have sent a lot of ripples. But the other thing that I think is important to acknowledge is Russia. And this whole thing started because of Syria and the civil war going on there, and then the people tried to escape, and they migrated to all these other countries. And then there's humanitarian issues involved, there's practicality issues involved, there's national identity issues involved, and I don't claim to understand at all the inner workings of what that all means with the Dutch and the French and all of them, their own personal issues. But really, that was ISIS and whatnot bringing that up as well, who then started doing all the attacks in Europe. Well, what we've seen is that Russia has come in and bolstered up Bashar al-Assad And basically, for all intents and purposes, that civil war is done. They lost. The rebels, whoever they were that we were throwing weapons to, have lost. And it looks like it's going to be Russia-backed Bashar al-Assad restabilizing that region. For worse, in my opinion, I was no Bashar al-Assad fan. I said we should have jumped in there a long time ago when they were going house to house killing children with shotguns. That was my line in the sand. I thought we might have, come in there. Then, of course, there was the chemical attacks that Obama put in the line in the sand. He then sent it to Congress to kind of let them decide. And, of course, they can't agree on anything, so nothing came of it. But what's interesting to me is that now that ISIS is looking like it's starting to become defeated because of Russia and because of Bashar al-Assad and what they're doing there in that whole region, and really using their military force to, and really it's Russia, it's mostly Russia, to put an end to ISIS. And there's good work going on with the Turks and with the Turkish and the Afghans and the Iraqis. So, and we're doing bombing strikes and stuff. So we're all kind of working together, but Russia's doing a good bulk of it. I want to see where Europe goes, because if all this stops, are they going to stay as conservative? Will Le Pen lose because it's over? So I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting to me. I'm definitely going to keep a close eye on it. But I wanted to, at this point right now, it looks like Vanders has lost. His party has lost. They will not be getting as many seats as they wanted to. And it looks like that's the way it's going to go. So, yeah, absolutely feel free. I'm sure there's a million things that I'm missing, and I wanted to keep this segment a little bit short since it's a solo segment. But if you guys have any thoughts, anything that you want to add to it, I know some of my friends there that have been to Europe quite a few times, and I'm sure you can illuminate me on some of the finer details that I'm sure I'm missing. So feel free to drop a comment there. Let me know any of your thoughts. Like this video and subscribe if you haven't. And we'll see you at the main show in just a few days.